The starting up of businesses in the country, but there is a very pertinent problem. The avenue towards which they need to get funding is very important because funding is the startup point or the kick-starting point of any business opportunity. And there is an organization called Pangea, which is largely an accelerator, or rather is the rolling belt in this case to ease these business startups across the country and in the African continent to get investors or link up with investors across the globe. The Chief Executive Officer of the organization is here with me in the studio. Thanks for coming. And Jonas Tesfu, your time is all appreciated. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start it off because it's very important that we look at the funding element. But before we come to that, how important is it for the outside world to understand that there are business opportunities in the African continent that only need kick-starting, and the main problem is the funding element? And what's your link in terms of, and how do you link the opportunities in the continent and then the investors who are willing to invest in these opportunities across the globe?
Thank you so much. To answer your first question, funding is very important. It's growth fuel. So if you want to grow your business, you're going to need capital injection in one way or another. When it comes to startups and SMEs in Kenya or generally in Africa, it's kind of been branded as this, you don't go to Africa for business. You know, you send humanitarian organizations and so on, but that's not the truth. Africa has the youngest population in the world, median age of 19.
Okay.
We all know that technology is disrupting all these industries and creating new jobs and new opportunities. So what's happening now is that more and more people are looking at Kenya as an investment destination. And also the diaspora, we shouldn't forget them. Last year they sent $3.1 billion. Kenyans from outside sending money to Kenya. Okay,
that's huge.
It's a lot.
More than even the aid that comes from the richer countries to the continent.
It's more than the Kenya exports in tea and coffee. So we see that money is available, but what's not there is trust. So what's prohibiting the money from finding the investment opportunities is trust. Maybe they don't know them, maybe they don't know where to find them, who is doing due diligence to check, is this solid, is this good stuff? And that's what we do. So through our accelerator programs, we find the best startups, we help them with business training, getting investment ready, help them with recruitment, getting partners, and up to the level where they are very attractive for investors. So we start seeing deals, huh?
Okay. More or less you are the bridge between the startups and the willing investors.
Yeah, in a way. We also invest ourselves because we believe that that increases the trust. And if you put your own money, then people know that you're not putting your own money if it wasn't good, huh? So we feel like trust is the biggest issue, and we look at ourselves as a trust builder and want to continue expanding on that trust. Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, then comes the very idea, which is very noble, of many young people across the continent who have the ideas of wanting to start up, say, certain business. And then we talked about the funding. Now, what are the very specific numbers that you can cite which you have helped out in terms of getting the funding from these investors after establishing the trust, which is very key?
Yeah, absolutely. Up to now, we have unlocked about $5–6 million in investment through our different programs. We also do investment in different sizes. Before, we only used to do accelerator programs. This is usually lower investment sizes. We're talking about $20,000 up to maybe $150,000, what you call angel investing size. What we have realized after doing that a few years is that what happens with these businesses once they're done with the accelerator and they become scale-ups and growth company, that there is no programs or support system. So then we launched our scale-up program, and this is focusing on much bigger ticket sizes, from $500,000 up to $3 million. And that's because these businesses are into something. They have found that here is a huge opportunity, so they need more fuel than the classical accelerators. So we are also innovating within our system, trying to identify how can we be most relevant to the local businesses. Okay,
you mentioned huge strides in terms of the money from perhaps the $2 million US to about, $20,000 US to about $150,000 US, $2 million to about 15 million Kenya shillings, then from $500,000 US dollars to $3 million US dollars. But of utmost significance is the monitoring of the progress of these businesses once you fund them. Do you keep track of the businesses, and do they perhaps end up in successful conclusion?
To be honest, for me that's a fun part, because once you invest the money, then you're an investor. Then you also want to make sure that this business grows and become a giant one day. So yes, we focused a lot on it. The best investment we've done so far in our history has grown about 35 times. The worst about 2 or 3 times the value. So we still haven't invested in any business that has gone down. All of them have been increasing, from doubling in value up to growing in 35 times. I don't know the word for it.
Okay, basically that is a healthy scorecard.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than investing in Tesla and crypto. But you need to understand that these businesses are still growing. So the return investment can continue can continue improving. But at the same time, there's always a risk element that a business goes like this and then maybe it goes down one day. You don't know that either, right? So far so good, that's what I can say.
Okay, ascendancy to descendancy, but you're keeping the optimum level.
Exactly.
Okay, well noted. Given what you have mentioned then, is perhaps you acting as an avenue and an accelerator in terms of linking the startup businesses, those with the ideas and those who are willing to fund, and therefore you create trust. But having said that, then there is the most significant element of demystifying the mindset within the investor community or the investors about the African continent. And what's your progress then in terms of making sure that you communicate the positive spin around the African continent and end up with the demystification of the held prejudice against the African continent, in regards to the long-held beliefs that Africa isn't worth billions of dollars that ought to be channeled there for businesses to be starting up?
To be honest, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I want to change this narrative, period. Because this narrative is not based on truth. African culture is filled with entrepreneurship. All the youth have their own ideas and businesses. So it's just, I look at it as misbranding, bad branding on the continent. And that by showcasing these success cases, we are able to change this mindset. And then when it comes to investment to the African continent, it's been growing with about 70% year to year. So it's really on an uphill. Now, during this year, 2021, we've seen 4 businesses from the African continent valued at over $1 billion. This hasn't happened before. So things are really things are really cooking, and it's changing the narrative. I think it's just a matter of years before Africa is seen as one of the most attractive investment community, period, on the continent.
Okay. Then you mentioned that Kenya is just a classical example, just a microcosm of the large African continent, because largely South Africa ranks first, Kenya comes second, and you have Nigeria in terms of your organization. And this is a continent that's at the moment in the preview eye of, say, America, which is the world superpower. China is catching up and is expected to outgrow the American economy. We have seen the meeting between President Xi Jinping and Joe Biden virtually held. You have the United Kingdom post-Brexit looking into the African continent, and you have the European Union, which is a large market for the African produce. With all these mounting pressure, which is exogenous on the continent, how do you take opportunity of the scrambling corporate and multinational organizations to invest properly in ideas and businesses and not exploit the African ideas and opportunities that are available within the context of the African continent?
I fully agree. You're really lifting up an important point here. And there is a scramble for Africa. Saying the opposite is fully incorrect. What we see as our biggest role is making sure that this funding that is being allocated to the continent is going to the youth and to local entrepreneurs. Because what you see now is that if this funding is tied up in this big system and there's no funding trickling down, then you have a continent filled with youth that don't get access to any of the opportunities. You also have the unfairness as part of expat community accessing funding to a much larger degree than local entrepreneurs. So why are we not enabling the youth and those with visions to build the future of the continent, instead of giving these opportunities away to these big systems that really haven't done much for the past 50 years?
Mm-hmm. Then you have the young people who outnumber any other demography in the African continent and globally, because the continent is set to outgrow in terms of its population markets in Europe, in the United States of America, and parts of Asia.
That's it.
How do you tap into this energy of the young Africans who are connected, digital, smart, and need perhaps expose in terms of tapping into the availability of the ideas to boost the African economy in general?
Yeah, by supporting them, because we believe they are the change agents on the continent that are needed to create true value creation and inclusive economies. So we want to be the what do you call it, the growth partners. So we support them in improving their businesses. We invest in them. We help them break down barriers, and even help them with policy and government, unlocking investment, getting new clients, helping them with recruitment. So areas where they need things, that's our job to do. And by helping them and supporting them, we are empowering them to be the game changers that we think they are. And we want to change this narrative of people coming from the outside to fix the problems. You know, the problem solvers are here. We just haven't been empowering them.
Okay.
Yeah.
The availability.
Yeah.
You just lack the adequate attention.
Yes. I mean, you know, we consider them too risky to invest in. When looking at their ideas, we're only looking at problems, not the opportunities. So the whole mindset of it is really resource dumb.
Okay. The president has called on the young people in the country to not solely depend on white-collar jobs and rather be entrepreneurial. And that has been also the clarion call from the visiting US president then in 2015, Barack Obama, who called on the young people to be tech-savvy and come up with ideas that are entrepreneurial in nature. For he said that is very important if we are to springboard our economy. Do you see yourself as an accelerator too of the Kenyan economy in creating more jobs for the people and alleviate the burden on the shoulders of the government?
Absolutely, 100%. We believe we measure ourselves as part of how many jobs we've been part of creating, indirect jobs, how have we benefited society, how are we benefiting environment. Absolutely. And we think rightfully so. We think government has a role to play as a facilitator, and then other systems have a role to play to complement government's vision. So I think the youth should be looking at, instead of becoming an employee, how to become an employer. Look at all these universities. You have 1 million university students. Mm-hmm. When they're done with university, many of them are not going to have jobs. Could they create businesses while they're in university, right? And maybe some of them can even hire some of their colleagues when they graduate. So I think we need to change this mentality and start looking at the youth as a solution rather than as a problem.
Okay, we'll finish up with this. And then there is the growing problem of instability. Not all countries in the continent are politically stable. We have seen the events in Ethiopia, for example. You have also instability in Eritrea, in Somalia. Uganda just recently, about 5 days ago, experienced twin blasts in the capital, Kampala. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is politically unstable since the coming to power President Felix Tshisekedi. Burundi, since 2015, when President Nkurunziza was re-elected, though unconstitutional, still is experiencing political turmoil. Rwanda is often accused of high-handedness, though it's an investor hub. Given all this, of course I can mention across the African continent, how is instability a problem towards the rolling out of your agendas?
Oh, it's a big problem, unfortunately. But we do see that business and economic development also creates peace. Mm-hmm. And we think a lot of this instability that's been happening is also connected to COVID-19, the economic downturn, and that there's a lot of unrest because there's a lot of people in the different countries that are not in a good state right now. And that we see these instabilities being created of that. We can't solve all these problems. We're not politicians. Mm-hmm. We're not UN. But what we believe is by empowering the youth to create jobs and economic stability, we're part of preventing crises from happening or building stability. But this is very difficult. I also wish, or could maybe encourage, for startups to create solutions within political tech and different ways of addressing this problem. Because as soon as you have transition of power, drama follows and instability follows. What role can youth play in preventing that? That would be very interesting.
And the creation of stability.
Yes, why not?
Okay, Jonas Tesfu, thank you for your time. Well appreciated. Many thanks for your company on the Daily Brief. And we look forward to more startup support from your end, for that is the objective of any stakeholder. And we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to you too for watching the Daily Brief. Many thanks for your time from 11 up until now. The reporters on ground from the counties of Kitui, the county of Kilifi, Mombasa, Kisii, and equally the reporters who are all set and to give us the assessment across Mashinani. And Alan Abinadab Owino is up next with K24 Newscut, and we'll see you on Monday for the primetime news. Bye-bye.